What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Cloud 11. So, in today's episode, I want to talk about spirituality. I want to talk about my spirituality in particular and tarot. So, I grew up very Christian. My parents worked for the church at a time. I was a praise dancer. I don't know. I was very curious about God from a young age, skeptical, but I think like a healthy skeptic, mainly a believer. So probably once I started college, I stopped going to church. I stopped really having an intentional relationship with God. Honestly, that kind of started in high school, but it really kind of was full steam ahead in college because, in high school, my mom was still going to church, so I would still go, but, sometimes. I think by senior year, I wasn't going at all. Or not often. But fast forward to college, right? I'm not really engaged. I'm just living my life. I'm enjoying my new freedoms, being human, adulting, just living in my flesh. And I learned a lot of hard life lessons and, wisdom living this way. It's not until grad school where I lost someone really close to me and, just kind of needed more from God. I needed way more from God than what church was giving. Like, church was giving sermons that I had already heard 2-3 years in a row, and I love, the energy of church. I love gospel music and listening to especially a live choir, praise and worship team. But praise and worship wasn't enough to heal that grief. A blanket sermon wasn't enough to heal that grief. God came at me way more creatively because that's what I needed to be reached. So, in that time, like when I was like disconnected from God, really developed a core foundation for becoming a communication teacher, a communication expert. And this laid the perfect foundation for God to build upon. Because what would come next is me becoming a spiritual communication enthusiast, and now an aspiring, or I don't even want to say aspiring, but I am a spiritual teacher. And that came as a result of stepping outside of Christianity and into a whole new world of different ways that God started communicating with me. So, when I lost my loved one of my best friends introduced me to tarot. And she showed me a tarot reading on YouTube. And it really just, when I'm talking about I needed specific advice that penetrated my soul, that tarot video did that. And I was like, I need to know more about this. What is this? It felt so personal, even though it was a general reading. The thing is, you got to be careful about those things, though. It's easy to become addicted to wanting to know what's next, what's coming. And, I would say that I did develop an unhealthy relationship with watching tarot videos. You have to be careful about that if this is something you decide you want to explore. Because it's not always true. Discernment is important. You have to know what messages are for you. You are the gatekeeper with tarot, not the tarot reader. So I started to learn discernment by reading for myself. This was, I guess you could say, one of the first forms of spiritual communication that was different than church, a pastor preaching to me. But I will say it first started with, just watching tarot readings. And then I started seeing angel numbers. I would see angel numbers right when I really needed some encouragement, or, I needed to be more grounded spiritually than in my, making a fleshly decision. Like, Spirit would come through with a number like 122 or 444, on the clock, or on a street number, on a house, license plates. Spirit would be sending me messages by way of number, and I would be Googling, or now I have an angel numbers book. But, I would just be getting advice after advice, wisdom after wisdom. And then Spirit started sending me creatures, animals that also had esoteric meanings. I have a spirit animal, or animal spirit, I'm sorry. I have an animal spirit book that talks about the esoteric messages of different animals and insects. But I just think it's interesting that these creatures or these numbers would come to me at certain times, in my human life where I really needed spiritual support, I also started getting messages in terms of like colors and chakras. I started to like research and study the chakra system. And from that, I got to understand that, wow, my emotions are very well connected to my spirituality. My physical health is very well connected to my spirituality. And the best way to understand the many dimensions of my whole self is through this chakra system, this energy system. It helped me to understand more about my inner child and where it's healed or, still broken. I got to know more about my higher self and more about how to keep my physical self healthy, healthy and in alignment with my higher self and the needs of my inner child. That's what learning about chakras did. So Spirit would send me colors, and each chakra has a specific color. So that would start to help me unpack different chakras that I needed to be working with, different areas that I needed to be healing, even if they were hard. I don't know. It just is really interesting. I don't know that I'm still a Christian. I like to say I'm a Christian plus, where I believe in Christianity in some Christian values because that's my foundation. I like the idea of the Bible being, a storybook of life lessons and wisdoms to carry with us. Kind of like fables, but spiritual fables. Obviously, there's evidence that Jesus Christ existed. So, I'm not saying that God's not real or Jesus isn't real. But for me, it's more of like debating that truth is not important to me. What's important to me is being connected to God personally, just like Jesus was connected to God, and having more people have that kind of relationship with God. So I don't know that, I know Christianity does help some people arrive at that, but for me, I feel like tarot gets me even closer to God, more specific, about the things that God wants me to focus on and be aware of. So I say all this because I'm offering tarot readings and really leaning into my calling as a spiritual teacher. I'll say as a spiritual communication teacher. So if anybody is ever interested, I would love to do a reading for you. I've got several themes and topics we can look into. And this is for people who are, spiritual leaning or very spiritual. I'd say if you are atheist, this is not something that is like, I don't treat tarot as like a game. It's not for play. For me, it's very serious and deep. It's very personal and sacred. So I really invite folks that are in that kind of space, that are curious about their intuitive abilities and curious to connect with deeper spiritual wisdom. Like, if you're in that space in your life, maybe consider doing a reading with me. Some things we can talk about include life purpose and calling. I'm not here to tell you what you should do. I'm here to tell you what Spirit says you can do. What are the paths you can take, and what paths will be, spiritually fulfilling for you. What will nourish your soul. So especially if you're in a place where you're like trying to make decisions, or you feel like, I don't know that I love what I'm doing, but I also don't know what else I love to do. Well, we can look into it. Let's talk about it. Let's see what Spirit has to say. All right. Maybe you also are interested in, animal spirit communication, creatures, and how nature is speaking to you. You might want to know what sort of animal spirit you're currently embodying, or that spirit's calling on you to embody. I really love this deck. If you're an animal lover, this probably you'd love this reading. We can also overlap, decks. We don't have to choose just one, but in terms of having a themed read, I think that's always a great starting point. We can also take a look at angels and ancestors and what past loved ones have to say to you. I love doing these reads. I will say that that is another form of spiritual communication God has gifted me the ability to understand. I'm an intuitive. Whether you believe it or not, I feel past loved ones, and usually messages come as just like immediate down, like I can feel their sentiments and thoughts, like what it is that they want to say. It just comes out, and it comes out like usually in readings, but also sometimes it comes out in letters. So I've journaled sometimes letters. My friends who have loved ones that have passed, their loved ones will sometimes come to me, and they'll give me a message to give my friends, but I haven't really given these letters ever because I, at that time, just felt like, in particular, those friends wouldn't believe me. But coming back to these readings, we can do an ancestor and angels read, like see what your ancestors have to say, guardian angels, higher self, past on loved ones. If you're healing in the area of grief, I think this can be a really powerful themed read for you. I have two last decks I want to talk about. The next one is my Melanin and Romance deck. I don't tell the future, okay? I just want to be clear. Like, we're not here to talk about when you're going to meet your soulmate, if the person you're with is your soulmate. This is really here to help you make just spiritually wise decisions in your romantic life. That's what this reading is for. And if you would like some support with that, hit me up. This is something I'm more interested in just exploring. I don't know if I'm going to keep offering romance readings, but if you want to be someone that explores that with me, hit me up. The last two decks, I don't know, did I talk about the self-care deck? The last two decks I have the self-care deck. If you want to learn about how to take care of your spirit, how to nurse yourself back to wellness, maybe you are experiencing depression, perfectionism, anxiety, and anything really. This is not a substitute for therapy or an actual medical doctor. It's just to underscore those services. If you want to come up with like a self-care game plan, let's do a read. I can definitely get you in some good shape, some suggestions for how to nourish that soul back to wellness or keep it well. I also have this Prism Oracle, which is for looking at our auras and our chakras. What's the condition of your soul? What energy are you carrying? What's covering you or what's being exuded from you? What chakras do you need to give some attention to, and how? So we can do lots of different fun readings. I want to help people get connected to their intuition. I want to help people, find their healing so that they can live their most fulfilled life on this planet and in this form. So, yeah, I just want to dispel any rumors that I do witchcraft. I don't really do spell work. For me, it's all about blessing people, protecting people, and healing people with wisdom. So if that sounds like something you're open to and interested in, hit me up. Let's do a reading. Thank you for checking out this video. like, subscribe, comment below. If you've had a reading with me, especially, comment and let people know what your experience was, if you're down to share a bit of a testimony. And if you're interested in a reading, you can also comment below. I'll leave my email in the description box. Reach out. I'm happy to set something up. They're $99 for an hour, so holla at me if you need me. See you in my next episode. Peace, y'all.